I think you find out who you are through service. I didn't know that I had the work I'm doing now in me. I thought I didn't, I shouldn't be on camera. I didn't speak correctly. Like, I'm now doing things that were not impressive to people. So figuring out what you want to be of service to and really going for that and only focusing on that, regardless of what your peers think, as hard as that is, brings out of you the thing that is the most impressive, the most impactful.
Louisa Shaeri is someone who deeply understands what it means to feel unseen, unheard, or out of step with systems that weren't built with you in mind. Her journey through art, advertising, and eventually into coaching is rooted in a gentle yet powerful truth. We each carry a unique way of thinking, creating and expressing ourselves, and it deserves recognition. In this conversation, we reflect on the pressures to conform, the quiet battles with self-doubt, and the courage it takes to embrace the parts of ourselves we once hid. It's a gentle exploration of identity, creativity, and what it truly means to be valued, the difference between being seen and being understood, and about learning to trust our own voices again.
I'm Louisa Shaeri, and I help culture creators, change makers, people whose work is transformative or unique in some way. They're coming from a unique point of view. I help them really know and believe that the value of that work is going to be recognizable, and help them restructure what they're doing so that it can be something that is viable and that is seen, that is recognized, and that is valued. It's definitely been a messy journey of trial and error and figuring things out. I think probably now it's taken me a long time to find my voice, and I think I probably would say that Bold Voices probably resonates now. But it took a long time on many levels. So when I was younger, sometimes I would have periods of being nonverbal, like situational mutism, it sometimes gets called. And the experience of, sharing opinions or having things to say being something that didn't feel encouraged, and learning to believe that the way I spoke or the things I had to say or the way that I said things was somehow not going to be received well. I really learned to mask and to hide and to try and figure out and be what was expected and to try and fit in. Along the way, I figured out that I'm autistic, or what people categorize as autistic. And so that's been a journey of really reorienting to, oh, hold on, maybe there are sides to me that I've experienced being misinterpreted, but actually it's me. And so maybe I want to actually be me. And so, I started with art and always wanting to be an artist and going into art school and then working across the creative industries and on film set, on advertising sets where they were filming idents and music videos and stuff like that. And then leaping into the art world and a decade in the art world. And that always felt like the place that I was going to be able to express the things that I wanted to express in my way. And then finding out that the art world system, there were other things I wanted to say, other sides of me that didn't quite fit that either. And so slowly making my way into the world of coaching and working directly with people and ideas and thinking. And first of all, helping other people who are going through an unmasking journey, a self-discovery journey. And I think the messiness has been always feeling like I don't really know what I'm doing. I don't really know who I am, but let me try this, let me try that. So I think messy journey and Bold Voices are probably ringing true. And then I definitely help the people I work with on a zero apology front. Yeah.
Yeah, you mentioned about your coaching. That really drew me into what you do. And obviously, the value part of that is very important because you've learnt through your experiences, judging by what you've just told me, that you transfer that over to how you can help others not necessarily go through those things, because everyone's got their own individual kind of points of view in their own journeys. But
Yeah.
I love the bit that you said on your website, which you realise that fitting in with an ill-fitting system only gets you so far. Can
Yeah.
can you go in more depth about that?
Yeah. So I think that something that I was able to see over the 5 years that I worked exclusively with autistic, ADHD, ADHD, like neurodivergent identified people who often had other identities, other experiences, right, that were also experiences where they would interact with a system, and that could be an education system, an industry, a family system, a workplace, like social norms. And the thing about a system that I learned from someone I think called Donna Meadows, who's written an introductory book on systems thinking. And what she says is that any system is designed to sustain itself. And so you're interacting with a system that is valuing whatever keeps that system upheld, right? And every system has a value system. There are certain things that get prioritized. There are certain things that where the resources go to, where the attention goes, what's valued. And many of our systems, and you talked about this on other episodes, right, where you're interacting with an industry or a system and there are inequities at play. Maybe there's structural ableism, racism, a kind of white supremacist approach to what it means to be professional, to be correct, to, classism, ageism. There are aspects to the social systems that we're interacting with where inequity is built in and certain things get valued above others. And sometimes that's simply like, for example, the coaching world has become more and more institutionalized, where you need certain credentials and you need certain ways of thinking to be recognized. You're funneled through a system of professionalization. And if you are bringing things that haven't been recognized, that don't fit those systems, that are potentially transformative of them, right? Maybe you're coming at your work from a particular point of view. It could be a creative point of view. It could be that you embody a kind of culturally hybrid point of perspective, right? It could be that you are having an idea or an insight that could change the way things are done. To bring that and to back that and to offer it, you often have to go against your own experiences of what has historically been valued. So what have people recognized? What have people seen? And what have people not recognized or intentionally overlooked? Or there have been stereotypes or things at play where those things that you're bringing aren't seen, aren't recognized. And so you're confronted with that, with, okay, I think I have something to offer, but I'm actually afraid to offer it. I don't believe people will see it. I think it will be overlooked. So there's an experience that people have where have gone through a journey of claiming for themselves, building the self-esteem, naming what's happened, recognizing the ingredients that have played a part in their own journey. But then when it comes to claiming that value and offering it and designing their business or their work around it, not fully trusting that they can really lean all the way in and be like, this is what I'm about. This is what I'm offering. And because they're afraid that it won't be seen.
How will they believe in their value, even if others don't understand it, whether it's focused on their visibility? How can they understand it and come out of that system that we will usually get trapped into?
Yeah. So there tends to be three things that are happening for people, which is a product of them not really trusting that they can go all the way in on the value that they're bringing, right? So one is that the way that they are, like the structure of the way that they're working, this could be what they're offering, what they're deciding to be known for, how they price, who they work with, the kind of people that they're looking to speak to and help. Often based on the logic of, I need to fit in with something, I need to please someone, and almost like has them holding back and not really making that visible. So there's that. Then the second one is there's a tendency to kind of negotiate who you are or leave parts of you behind. So I personally had to kind of go through a process of going into coaching, but thinking that, well, I think differently and I have something different to offer, but maybe the coaching industry as a whole is going to just reject me, and I'm not legitimate and I'm sort of lower down. And so I'm going to have to mimic what is valued in coaching. So I'm going to have to leave parts of me behind and not bring all of me with me. And so you see that in different flavors depending on the person. So yeah, it's the structure of how they work, it's the self that they're bringing. And then the third one is being somewhat apologetic or people pleasing. So this might not necessarily look like people pleasing in the way that we normally think of it. It might look like I'm going to overwork and make sure that I'm doing everything that the client needs, or I'm doing everything that they want to your own detriment, right? So, or it could be undercharging. Like, I don't think people are going to see the value, so I need to drop the fee to get them to work with me. And so all of these things lead to people being exhausted, not kind of blanding out a little bit and downplaying the thing that they bring, that is the thing that might also make them stand out and make what they're bringing visible. And so, yeah, it's really flipping those three things. So making sure the structures of what you're doing and how you're working honor the actual thing that you most value offering, working through all of the stories that get internalized of why not me, why there's only a version of me that I can be. Maybe I can bring all of me, but maybe that changes who I work with. Maybe there's a standard or like a set of boundaries that I need around, no, I'm only going to work with people who can recognize, do honor the way that I work best. And then, making sure that that you really are seeing the impact of the work that you do. Quite often we're thinking about, am I going to be okay? Can I pay my bills? I'm going to have to impress this person. And we're not thinking about, all right, after they've worked with me, what then gets to happen for them? Maybe there's an outcome that they gain for themselves, for their work, for the relationships they're in, for the organization they're in, that has a ripple effect. And when you connect with that, when you're thinking about that, when you're kind of filling up your attention with the power of that, that changes everything. And so sometimes it's looking at, okay, I've been working in a particular role in a particular industry, but I need to change that because actually the thing that I really want to do is transform it. And so sometimes for people, it's a role shift, or it's pivoting what their business is. And for others, it's more like they've already started the work they want to do. They've already started their business, but they are kind of hiding a little bit and, not really truly believing in the value and being someone who can have a level of conviction that the people who can resonate with that can come with you and say, yeah, I feel that too. And let's make it happen.
Yeah. The industry, obviously we are part of the industry, especially the creative industries. And you've raised a lot of good points about, I think the first thing we put at point of call, we tend to do, the first thing we do is look at ourselves and how we can put safeguarding things in place to make sure that we are valued and we do the things like you said, make sure that we're with the right people, look at the way we work and what we do want in our careers, etc. I think you also mentioned about the education and its critical thinking about the value of work, and there's a lack of education, in other words. Do you still feel the same way about that?
I think so. I mean, if I think back to, so for example, when I went to art school, there was no, it was almost like crude to talk about, yeah, but how do you make money? How do you earn? How do you understand the value of your work? How do you present that value to someone? And that comes from certain, I guess, economic and class structures that it's designed that way. I think our education system itself is also designed for you to be able to do well within structures where you're producing an outcome for a workplace, right? Or you are fitting in with an agenda, or you are ticking the right boxes, and that there is an authority to please. And so coming out of that type of education system, the working assumption that you will have is okay, there's an authority to please, a way that I'm supposed to, there's a way that I will receive, there's a way I'll be recognized. I need to figure out what that is and then be that.
I'm just thinking, because education is obviously one of those things where we all, at some, whether it's education of life or the systems that we use, because even now I've spoken to a few people who said that their children aren't being taught how to design anymore. They have to,
Right.
obviously, it's come from, so they have to basically teach their children how to create, how to learn, and how to make again, which is,
Wow.
but
Yeah.
just they're sticking to the basics like English, maths, and that's
Yeah.
it. Compared to when I used to be at school, art and languages was top of the curriculum.
Yeah. 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 For sure.
It's probably even harder now. Not only do they have to get through these systems, they have to now get other people to understand them as who they are. And it's another layer that they have to, like a hurdle. And I was just going to say that, is there a place for people who find that people who are taught to mask who they are as a neurodivergent, to conform or mold themselves, is there a place for them to reclaim who they are again?
I think so that was what I was doing previously to what I'm working on now, like
Okay.
really offering a space for people who were on that journey to be reflected, to have somewhere where they could explore that. And when I first started, there were hardly any things like that. And in the so I started in 2020. Um, and in the 5 years that I was doing it, there are now like tons. So it's just finding places where that, that side of you can be mirrored, can be seen and accepted, and experiencing that in your nervous system does things. It moves things. It means that you have evidence for yourself that, oh no, this is legitimate and this is who I am and it's okay. But one of the things that I really came to in that journey was the idea of cognitive justice, which is a framework that I think I love even more than neurodiversity, because it speaks to the idea that there are different types of knowing, and not just, for example, a Western universalist scientific way of knowing. There are endless ways of knowing. And what cognitive justice speaks to is that if there are ways of knowing that are at the core of someone's livelihood or their lifestyle, then that is a legitimizing way to value it. So this for me offered a lens on, okay, if you perceive differently, if you think and process and communicate differently, it's not just that you need that you need inclusion to be part of what already exists, or that you need a way to translate between you and how things are typically done, or that this is a question of simply you being able to access existing structures, but rather that the way that you think and you process is a source of knowledge that also has value, that can also be indicative of how your lifestyle and your livelihood might be sourced from within you, and be something that you can build on knowing that you aren't the only one like that. There are other people who see and value that, and not just other neurotypical people. There are things that you bring that have value beyond that, right? We have endless evidence if you look at the creative history of different creative industries, art, etc., music, and we know statistically there's among art students there's a much higher degree of neurodivergence. So there's so much that we're bringing, and that doesn't mean that you're only legitimate if you're earning from it, but it means that there are things that you bring that might not have been recognized, but that are important, that are necessary, that are part of why humans still exist, that are of value to the collective. And when you offer that, when you start to experience that, there's a level of belonging, there's a level of connection, there's a level of like the inside of me, the ways that I perceive, the point of view I have is having an impact on someone else that is a good thing. And that's a type of feedback loop that I think speeds up the journey of unmasking, of finding yourself. And so where I got to with coaching people through that was when you might not know what that is, but how you find it is figuring out how can you be of service to something. What do you feel called to contribute to? Like, where are you feeling like, no, I have something to say or I have something to give? And then start being that, start doing that. And that, for me, when I was observing who I was working with, tended to be the fastest route, right? The fastest route to, I can be me, I can feel seen. And vocation, the work that you do, being a vehicle for that, being something that's, for me, been really affirmative, and I've seen it over and over be the same for other people.
I definitely love your term that you use, unmasking. And I never hear that word used in the context you've used it, because people just say visibility or, exposure. And I think those exposure and visibility are sometimes a bit abrupt. Unmasking just feels more to me like a bit like a parcel. You slowly unravel it and take care and to the extra layers of your who you are as a human being. You're not ripping that band-aid off. I remember those terms were used many times and it was a bit too, a bit abrupt for me. But when you use unmasking, I just feel automatically calmer when you say that. And that's a beautiful term to use when you're discovering yourself as a individual or as an artist or designer. And yeah, that's really great.
Can't take credit for it. It's unmasking has come from, I think, autistic advocates online.
Right.
And it was a term that for me personally was always the thing that I was Googling, the thing that I wanted to know how to do. And I think you're right. Like, visibility can often take us into the zone of how we're read, how we're seen, optics, being legible. For me, visibility is much more about the people who can see you. Are they actually, are you giving them a chance to see you? But yeah, unmasking it's lifelong, right? We never arrive. We never really know ourselves. Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to ask about the importance of some people put a lot of importance either they want to be seen or being understood. Do you think it's possible for it to be either or both? Because what's more important, being more seen or being more understood?
Ooh, that's a juicy question.
I think we're
I have not
overrated. For
thought
me,
about
I've got
it.
my point of view about that, but
Go
I
on,
like to.
let's hear yours.
I think seen is a tricky one because some people don't. They want to be seen on. Obviously, we talk about social media, but it's only a facade sometimes. And I do feel that I think you need to be seen with your self first before you can know who you are, before you present yourself. And of course, we can put on a mask, we can be all these different types of characters online, but if you put all these multiple layers upon in front of yourself, I think for me personally, being more understood is more important, especially in this day and age. And it starts with yourself first, knowing yourself, because you can lie to yourself as to the cows come home. And I think seeing you can be seen in many different ways. You don't have to be right in someone's face and present yourself all the time. And it probably for some people it's quite exhausting. And yeah, that's my thoughts on that. Yeah.
Yeah, I've never heard that distinction made, and I think it's a really important nuance. Like there's being seen, but are people understanding you? And I think when people talk about I want to feel seen, it's they want to feel understood.
That's what
Yeah,
they
I
mean.
like
Yeah,
it.
about AUDHD. There's lots of terminology gets thrown around, and I just want to know your experiences of what you've encountered being neurodivergent, because I'm always feel like I'm walking on eggshells, and I don't want to feel like I'm offending anybody and getting the wrong terminology. So please
Yeah.
educate me.
Okay. So AUDHD is just an amalgamation of autistic and ADHD. But it's a portion of that. There's more ADHD people supposedly than autistic, and I think even than ADHD. So there's a certain set of experiences that people have decided to call ADHD where those things overlap, that bring a different nuance to both being autistic and ADHD. I think we're at a really strange kind of cultural moment of a quite high amount of visibility for these terms. And with that comes the resistance and the questioning that people will have, like, oh, well, everyone's getting diagnosed these days. But when we look at the history of both of those terms, like if you consider that the idea, the notion, the category, it's a category, right? It's a way of categorizing certain people, certain behaviors. As if you look at the DSM, the Diagnostic Manual, I forget what the thing it stands for mental disorders, autistic means abnormal. It's always defined in reference and in relationship to a norm that is really coming out of a certain moment in European history where eugenics was at a height, uh, early 1900s, and psychiatrists and people who were working with children were rewarded for coming up with these categories. So, for example, Asperger's has gone out of favor now because there was a direct link found between Hans Asperger's and the Nazi agenda. And so you could conceive of this way of categorizing certain bodies as being a direct consequence of that thinking. And that has been, I think, something that those I've worked with have found important to their journey of self-claiming. Like, there is no normal, and yet also, and still having a need to point to and signpost, I know, but there are things that I do that are different. And how we might think of this is, especially when it comes to the workplace, this is a product of industrialization, of certain ideologies of what it means to be human. And when you don't fit industrialized modern systems, rather than question the system, it's much more convenient for that system to question the individual and point to them. And you have the problem, you have the diagnosis, you are the abnormal, there is something wrong with you. And so it's a dilemma that I think a lot of people come to, which is like, I want to feel understood. And the only available language that the system is offering is a label. And the question of, can the label be reclaimed? Can it be reworked to mean something else? Yeah. And it's a struggle, and it's not complete, right? We're not at a point where these labels can be made irrelevant. People often want to get rid of the label, but we can't really get rid of the label without changing the system. Yeah.
Yeah. The chicken and the egg scenario.
Yeah.
But obviously, I will put all information to the relevant for people who want to know in the show notes about AUDHD. And also, you coach, don't you, underrepresented autistic and AUDHD creatives? Is that right?
Yeah, I've widened beyond that because of the journey that I'm coaching on is much less identity based and much
Right, I see.
more like it's come out of that history. And that's where I kind of cut my teeth, as it were, as a
In the beginning.
coach.
Yeah.
But yeah, so many of my clients hold other identities that are also addressed with this question of what is the value that you're bringing and how can you honor that value. And so it no longer makes sense really to frame it through an identity lens that is narrow. But of course, that's at the heart of my work because it's how I work, and it's I find that's who I attract anyway. There's a mutual recognition that happens.
This is part of the conversation that I love to get to know. We talked about the messy side of being a creative, and it's called Studio Draw. It's a bit of a play on words, so it's like creative drawing, the physical draw, that draw that people don't want to talk about, the messy one we chuck
Yep,
our bits in that nobody wants to know
everyone's got
about.
one.
Everyone's got one. If you had to design using only 3 tools, what would they be and why would you use those tools?
Oh, I love it. Pen, paper, and camera.
Brilliant. Straight to it.
Yeah.
So why those 3?
Why? I think visually, and so when I'm thinking through, for example, I like to come up with frameworks that help my clients contextualize where they're in. Context feels really important to me and is often really helpful for neurodivergent people as well. Anyone who is on a journey that they haven't been on, where am I? And what does that look like? And so drawing out shapes and diagrams of that helps me think through those things. And then is another framing device. When I was making art, it was a lot about light and dark. And I think the camera, we think of it as something that's faithful to reality. And so often it's really about how are we framing a problem or a thing that we're paying attention to. I imagine that's going to all completely change now with AI, but those would be my tools.
Cool. What is something chaotic about your creative process that you secretly love?
That's such a good question. I'm a mucky pup. I make a mess. Yeah. So my husband will tell you if I'm cooking, there's like chaos everywhere after. So I also have to clear up if I'm not cooking. It's the same in my studio. If you were to look at it now, like I'll go through a weekly tidy up, but yeah, I like to be in a mess.
Yeah, that's your best work is in the mess.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
Okay, the last question I have for you. What's the weirdest source of inspiration you've ever used?
We can stay with weird because I think my brain's gone there. I'm just filtering.
No rush. Take your time. Didn't mean to put you on the spot.
Yeah, I've never gone down this line of thinking, which
That's
is
cool.
maybe a good place to go. I think maybe athletes. Like, I like watching people who are like Olympic athletes who there's an energy of nothing else matters but this, like an unreasonable degree of obsession.
Interesting.
That I quite like to look at and take inspiration from, because it takes me out of this idea of having a 9-to-5 job.
Okay.
Maybe.
Anything specific about the focus part of is it their routine? Is it their kind of their determination or something like that?
I think it's the determination and the permission that they've somehow got to go that obsessive about something, and how odd that is. I think it's quite weird, but I respect it and I admire it in some way. I think there's a level of dedication that, yeah, certain creative people that I've admired have that's maybe similar. It's like they're the Olympic athlete of their own creative expression. Prince has always been huge example for me. I think Alexander McQueen was a huge inspiration growing up, and also Rick Owens. Like there's a degree to which Rick Owens has a persona and a lifestyle and such as extremely niche thing that he is about, where it makes that thing fully realized, fully expressed. I think it's that. I think it's like people who've gone to that degree of trusting their own artistic vision, and like every part of their life is about it or structured to support it, and they're not squeezing it in or thinking that it's just a job. Yeah.
Is there any advice you would give you people out there who are listening?
Yes. I think something I see in myself over and over, something I've seen in people I work with over and over that trips us up is when we're thinking about the value of our work is to look at our peers and try and impress our peers or the industry or whatever. But like, what will my friends think? What will people who I'm working alongside think? What would be cool? And that doesn't honor actually what people have to bring. And it's only when you really get into a space of service, and by service, I don't mean martyrdom, I don't mean overgiving, I mean actually caring about something. And that often pulls out of you something a little bit different than what would impress your peers. But it's also the thing that I think helps you eventually find out who you are. I think you find out who you are through service. I didn't know that I had the work I'm doing now in me. I thought I didn't, I shouldn't be on camera. I didn't speak correctly. Like I'm now doing things that were not impressive to people. So figuring out what you want to be of service to and really going for that and only focusing on that, regardless of what your peers think, as hard as that is, brings out of you the thing that is the most impressive, the most impactful.
Wonderful. Thank you. If anybody wants to reach out to you and support your work, how would they do that? By social media handles?
Yep, the best place to go is my website, valorize.systems, valorize with a Z, .systems, and you can find all my social links on there. I'm new to social media. Come and connect with me. And yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you, Louisa.
Thank you so much for having me. It's like really an honor, and I love what you're doing with this podcast and the conversations you're having. They're so important. So yeah, thank you so much.